So who's here from El Paso? Oh, of course, I knew you were from. And who's here from Albuquerque? There's either someone here from Albuquerque or someone with really horrible laser pointing skills. Okay, all righty. I'm just like, there's like 4 people up there from New Mexico or from Arizona with a tremor, one of the two, but hey. So I'm Barbara Chamberlin, and I actually am really very happy to be here. I came here for the first app camp a couple years ago and just fell in love with the process and the people, and it's a really great experience. So if this is your first time here, welcome. I'm glad that you're here as well, because you make the whole experience better for all of us. So when I started looking at grand challenges, I started talking to him, I'm like, grand, I mean, that's kind of, big. Who am I? They're great. I mean, they're admirable challenges. I think they're possible. They're pretty good challenges, I think. I know that here at App Camp, we're going to do a lot of talking about things throughout apps, like putting text in when you have kids who aren't readers, or where you put your buttons, or in-app sales. We're going to be talking about a lot of those things that aren't small by any stretch of the imagination. They're important, but we're going to be talking about those kind of things that go to all the apps. And what I wanted to talk about are kind of these larger issues that I think face all of us as app developers. I think a lot about sitting at a restaurant and seeing a family with kids at the restaurant, and the parents hand them the iPad or the Kindle or whatever it is. And the parents, myself included, are not necessarily looking for the highest quality app to discern what might be the most appropriate dinner time app. They just take it, and they just give it to them. And we are all responsible for our own apps, but we're also responsible for the larger body, which is that each child that has an iPad is going to have their own collection of apps. And we're moving quickly to where this is the educational media where they will have a lot of time. So I've been thinking a lot about are we here or are we not? These are grand challenges in app design, and I want to do kind of a developer's call to greater things, just something to put context in our mind of what we're going to be doing the next couple of days. The Learning Games Lab, New Mexico State University, we've been doing games for about 20 years. We develop games for Flash, for web, for the iPad, a whole bunch of different things. Science, math are some areas of particular interest to me, but we also do things for adults as well. So life has a way of handing you crystallizing singular experiences that sometimes change your path forever. So to give you an idea of who I am, let me tell you a little bit about the first one. Now, when I was in college, that's not what you think it is. I've never actually looked like that. However, when I was in college, I was working at a pancake house, the midnight shift, the graveyard shift, at a pancake house next to a strip club. There were some interesting folks who came in for pancakes at 3 a.m. in the morning. And one night, about the middle of the summer, one of the bouncers came in, and there was a fight going on there in the pancake house. And the bouncers, it was getting tenser, and it was getting more tense. And the bouncer just stood up, and he took the water glass, and he banged it on the table and broke the top off. And then he took a bite, chomp, 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 and he swallowed it. Which I will say first is a really effective way of diffusing the situation, because the other guys are like, dude, we're cool, we're good. You have fun with that glass tomorrow morning. But that was a crystallizing moment for me with perfect clarity that whatever I was going to do with my career, it was not going to be that. It was not going to be there in the pancake house with glass-eating bouncers and managers and waitresses who were hopped up on drugs to make it through a midnight shift. So as I went on and went back to college, there was no test that was too hard to study for, right? There was no class that was too boring, I wouldn't show up. Whatever it would take to not go back to the bar, that's what I was going to do. Motivating for me to go to college, which is I went to NMSU, and I fell into a student job developing apps. At this point, or developing software at that point, I had no idea this was even a career you could go into. And we started doing disks, floppy disks, fell in love with living books, and we modeled some of our first tobacco prevention games on that and installed them on floppy disks. And we're starting to do the internet that was coming around. And I was sort of waiting for the internet to kind of take off. Because at that point, it was all text, it was images. We hadn't really seen anything educational. We had the frog dissection. And it was about 95 that I saw the first billboard that had a URL on it. And I thought, okay, here we go. The internet is about to be mainstream when they're putting it on a billboard. That was where I realized this was really taking off. About that time, I got into comedy. Now, I was still working full-time at the university, and I put this picture up for a couple of reasons. The first is, when you are in your 20s, take pictures of yourself. Crucial importance. I want to look back at 27-year-old Barbara and be like, you crazy girl, because I thought my arms were flabby and my stomach was poochy, and now I think that's hilarious. So whatever you think of yourself in your 20s, your hairline, the arms, the jaw, whatever, you look beautiful. Take it. Pictures. Okay. So I was doing stand-up comedy, kind of as a hobby, as a fun thing, was kind of doing traveling. But I was still doing stuff at work, and we were still doing CDs and games, and we were getting into websites and that sort of thing. But the comedy thing kept calling me, and I have to address this because everyone always, when they find out I did comedy, they want to hear about it. Well, what did you do? Who did you open for? Why'd you get out of it? How'd you get into it? And so I'll tell you, at this point, I was starting to have a modicum of success. I mean, as successful as you can have as a comic in Las Cruces, New Mexico. I was starting to travel, starting to headline some shows, and it was becoming clear to me that I had this kind of comedy career taking off that I was going to have to pay some attention to. And I either needed to quit my job where I was developing educational media and I had a dental plan, or I was going to have to go do comedy and move someplace where I could do this full time. And I was at a point where I was trying to balance those two. And I was booked on a bunch of gigs, and this one was actually in El Paso, so it was kind of near my hometown. So I had some friends come over. Hey, they could see me kind of perform, you know. So I was getting ready. I think I was headlining that one. And a guy that was opening, he had a heckler in the audience. A woman, she was drunk. This is what comes from working a place that has a 2-drink limit. And he just lost control of it. And she was heckling him, and he didn't deal with it well. And so she stood up, and she flashed him her chest. Yes, that was my reaction. Yes, and it went downhill from there. Now, at this point, you might be stopping wondering why I got out of comedy and wondering how you could get into it. But it's not all glamour. It's not all glamour like that. In fact, as it kind of spiraled out of control, she stood up and she yelled, "And I'm the owner of the bar," which was a crystallizing image for me, because I realized at this point, this is my workplace and those are my colleagues. I'm going back to ed media with the dental plan. So not surprisingly, I returned to school, because I thought, if I'm going to do educational media, I want to do this well. If I'm going to do it in an academic environment, I need to be able to write grants. I want to know how to research it. I want to know how to evaluate it. So I went back and I got my PhD, returned to New Mexico, where we created the Learning Games Lab, which is just really a research space where we do user testing of our games, and we have kids come in and they play, and that's a whole nother talk about the testing that we do. And it just kind of gave a sexy name to the work that we do in developing educational media. And my husband and I created our own lab for the development of small children. Had my son. And then a few years later, N of 2, we doubled our sample size there, so I have 2 boys now. And now my job is to do this. It's to write grants. Certainly we develop games, and I'm the instructional designer, and I do a lot of writing, and we look at that. But different from, my husband and I also develop apps on the side just based on what we think our kids need. And there, much like what some of you all do, we have a great idea, we make the app, we put it up, and we try to sell it. What I do at the university is I have to get the money first. So I have to write a grant to NSF or NIH or USDA, and I have to make an argument to them about why all the apps that are out there aren't good enough and what they're missing. And I have to say, this is what's needed, and this is how it could be better, and this is how we can transform learning, and this is how we can make children better. And the truth is, I now fail about 56% of the time doing that, which is actually a pretty good average. It means I've written 76 of these things, and 35 of them were funded, and the rest of them I got letters from grant review panels telling me why my idea is no good, and why I was crazy, and how I should rethink it. And if there is an academic equivalent to this, that is it right there. It's kind of demeaning in the same way. But I'll tell you, I would rather fail at doing this at a 56% failure rate, where at least 1 out of every 2 grants I write don't get funded, than succeed at the things I was succeeding at. Because this is where my passion is. This is where your passion is. That's why we're here, and this is what drives our passion. Either that, or you could be a little creeped out now that I have pictures of your kids in my presentation. It could go either way. Okay, so back to grand challenges in app design. Okay, when I started thinking about grand challenges, what we need that's going to motivate us, inspire us to do something big, I realized I don't really know how to do it. I'm gonna give you some things today that I don't really know how to do it. So I really probably could have called it, well, heck, if no one else knows how to do it, we might as well be the ones to try. So that's our rallying call tonight. When it comes to grand challenges, I think of space. I'm kind of a space nut. And what interests me about technology is we seem to fear what we don't know. We like to go into it with a plan and a strategy, and we've talked to people, and we do the research, and we know how it's going to work, and it doesn't always work that way. And my favorite example of a grand challenge is when Kennedy announced that we would be going to the moon in the decade, in the 60s. Now, he didn't consult NASA. NASA didn't come to him and say, this is our plan, we figured it out, we've done some research, we've got a 10-step plan, we know what we're doing. No, he just kind of announced it. And NASA said, what? NASA administrator said, who wants my job? NASA and the country said, really, the moon? You think we can do that? We don't think we can do that. So a couple months later, he went to Rice University and he made his speech justifying why we should go to the moon. And what he said was, this is 1962, we choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept. Now we can look back, and we're thrilled that they accepted it because we went to the moon, and we got all the benefits that came with the Apollo space program. But you know what was amazing about the Apollo space program? When Kennedy announced we were going to the moon, we had a sum total of 15 minutes in space with a man in space. 15 minutes. We didn't know how long we could keep a man in space. We didn't know how to feed him. We didn't know how to do the other things. We didn't know how to get to the moon if we were going to go around this way, that way. There were 3 different ways they were looking at. We didn't know how to land on the moon. Geologists at that time, many of them, thought that the low gravity and the dust on the moon would be a surface that would just sink a craft in and we couldn't actually touch down on the moon. And how would we get a car up there and how would we land? They didn't even know. And Kennedy says it doesn't matter because we do these things because they are hard and because that is the challenge we are willing to accept. So I started thinking about grand challenges. Grand challenge number 1, math for everyone. We've been working on a project. Oh, I'm bilingual, those of you from the UK. Okay. Speak English and British. I don't watch Downton Abbey for nothing. All right. Math for everyone. Now, we have some great math people here. Darren's over there. Gabriel's here. Where's Patrick? There's Patrick with NCTM. So we have some great math people here. We have other folks here who are doing some great math apps. You're not the ones I'm talking about. I'm not talking about more math apps. That's not what I'm talking about. We're working on a project called Math Snacks. This one's targeting middle school kids to help them learn concepts behind math. So we've been looking at math education 5-6 years. We're also working on a similar project at a university to find out why kids drop out, why students drop out of science-intensive careers. Turns out it's the math. It's the same math. The same math problems that we have in 3rd grade, in 6th grade, in college, it's all the same math. Ratios, fractions, proportions. They can't do them. And if you want to get worried about where this country is heading, it's math. And it's not because we need more mathematicians. It's because we need waitresses who know how to do math. We need bankers who know how to do math. We need engineers who know how to do math. We need to have senators and congressmen who know how to do math. We need to have artists who know how to do math. We need everybody who knows how to do math because math isn't just about computing. Math is about solving problems. And when we look in every way that our country is failing in math, it is significant. It is in their performance in 3rd, 6th, high school, and college. It is in their self-efficacy. It's in teachers' skill and in their interest for doing it. It's in kids' beliefs about how important it is. And recent research is showing that math skills at an early age, under the age of 4, might be a better predictor of success in school than other things we're looking at. It's math. Math is where we're headed. And I could tell you more about that research, but it would be a clear violation of the Open Bars Meeting Act. Yes, that clearly states where alcohol is served, you cannot convey too much information from literature review. So I'm going to have to share that with you later. But this is at the heart of what we're looking at. We think math looks like this. We think it's counting and we think it's number recognition because by and large, that's what we saw when we were in kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade. Or we think it looks like this. We think it's about a formula. And because we think it's about a formula and we think it's about counting, whenever we include math in anything we do, we make it about formulas. And we ask if you can do it when a ninja asks you, or if a penguin can ask you, or if an alien can ask you, or whatever it is, we make it about the formulas. But it's not about the formulas. Math is really about conceptual understanding. Formula is just how we apply it. So what does that mean to all of us? It's not really about math for everyone. It's about math for every app. So for those of you who aren't creating math apps, you're doing telling time apps or reading apps or truck apps or ferry apps or whatever else, we use numbers in game design. We use numbers as a way of giving feedback. We use graphs and charts as a way for you to estimate how well you're doing. We use math language when we say things above, beyond, higher, less than, greater than, but we shy away from them and we make math simple. We don't need to do that. So how do we get math for every app? There's some easy things we can do, such as multiple representation of numbers. You do not have to give a score in whole numbers all the time. Now, Darren's app, I don't want to scoop you, Darren, because he said it was just accepted to the math store, listen to me. One can dream. Should be on the math store. It's on the app store. So Darren is a master of many things, and certainly in math apps. So this is his math doodle. So I wanted to just show you some of what he's done. In Connect Sums, you can, there's a whole thing there where you add up a series of values, but you can do it with numerals, you can do it with dives, you can do it with written letters, fingers, holes, 10 frames, Spanish tally marks, Roman numerals. He's just kind of showing off, I know, but polygons, coins, money, fractions, area fractions, bar fractions. Okay, binary, Braille. This is when I told him, what, there's like no Klingon? Come on, dude. But the point is multiple representation of numbers. It might be what speaks to you about what makes sense about a number as a 10 frame. It might be what makes sense to somebody else as a bar graph. So give kids, when you give them a score, when you give them a readout, give them multiple representations of numbers. Another easy thing we can all do is how we use charts and graphs for feedback. I'm going to go to another one of my favorites. Darren did this with Jennifer Wells from PBS Science Fair. This is a preschool app, and they're having kids in preschool create a chart, putting certain things first by button color, then button shape, then button holes, and they're saying things like, what a great place to put your data. Kids can understand graphs visually at an early age. Use graphs and charts. Vary your shapes, sizes, dimensions. Everything doesn't have to be a square. It can be a cube. It can be a triangle. It can be a pyramid. And use vocabulary. Ask kids to make comparisons, measuring, estimating. You can do all of these things, and it doesn't have to be a map app. But mostly, ask, how can every app increase math literacy? Because if you want these kids to grow up to do whatever it is you're preparing them to do, they have to have math as a structure to do that. If you don't know how to do that, Common Core, it's a new nationwide to try to get all of our states. You can go to Common Core, corestandards.org. They have English and math. Most of the states now have adopted them, not Texas because they're crazy, but the other states. You can go for math, see what math is. If it's not just counting, what is it? What does it look like? It takes 20 minutes. You can also go to the Ready to Learn, the PBS Ready to Learn standards. That's a fun read too, and I don't mean that sarcastically. It's interesting. PBS Kids Ready to Learn. They've got a great framework that makes it really accessible into what math looks like. And of course, the focal points from NCTM. NCTM, National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. So my mom a few years ago, I finally got her, this is about 20 years ago, and I finally got her on email. It was like pushing and pulling. And so I get an email from my mom that said, hey, honey, I finally got on this email thing. I'll call you tonight and tell you about it. I know. So fast forward that about 3 years ago, and I finally got her on Facebook. And she sent me an email to let me know. And she said, you're going to tell people about this. And I said, I think I'm going to have to, Mom. But the truth is that even when we have technology to facilitate dialogue between parents and kids, it doesn't happen like it should. And if there's a second important challenge, it's to increase this between children and adults, the way they talk to each other, the way they work with each other, the way they play together. Okay, I have to tell a story. Did Bjorn leave? Okay, Tokaboka. I have to tell you all about Tokaboka. My kids love Tokaboka. They love a lot of apps, but Tokaboka is the brand and the strategies, and I think we're going to hear about that tomorrow, the success with Tokaboka. So let me tell you about the Tokaboka game that we play at home. The Tokaboka game is we sit at dinner and we say, what kind of Tokaboka app do you want them to make? And my boys come up with ideas. They want Tokaboka Earth, where you can drag earth and water around and put countries and people. They want trees, where you can put leaves on it and brush them away. Race cars, where they can see he's painting. Now he's like, what? They want a jewelry maker where you can do toca boca beads and you can do it. They want transportation and they want a cart they can do it. They want a garden where you can plant them and then make the things go away. They want a restaurant where you can theme it and do the food. They want a superhero where you can dress the superhero. This is the game that we play. And as great as the toca boca apps are, and I think they're wonderful, I don't know that they designed it this way particularly, but it has been a beautiful way to get us communicating with our kids about what they're learning. And it doesn't have to be about toca boca apps. Ask your kids to design apps. But our problem is, I'm not talking to you as parents, I'm talking to you as designers. How do you get parents to talk to their kids about what they're playing? Again, more research than I want to tell you when you've had a couple of glasses of wine with dinner, but the vocabulary disparities in what we're seeing, the difference between higher income, medium income, and high and low income. Basically, if you want to go look, you can look at Hart and Risley. They have a lot of interesting research on this for many years. Basically speaking, lower income kids have fewer words spoken to and with their parents. That means they have a lower vocabulary, and that's a significant predictor of school success. And if there is one danger I think we have the risk of doing as app developers, it's separating kids from adults even further. It's putting an iPad between them and lessening how much they talk and interact. And what I was taught in ed technology was do no harm. That's the first rule, is do no harm in educational technology, because if the technology doesn't do it better, don't use it. We have to use it. It's awesome. We're doing amazing things. So our challenge then is, how do we facilitate that dialogue? And this is the one I really have no idea how to do this. You have got to help me out here. I think you could possibly model dialogue. I'm going to give you an example of that in a minute. You can certainly encourage co-play and get parents and kids and teachers and kids trying to play them together. We can give instructions to adults. We can say, do this with your kids. You can have an info button. I'd put that up on a tweet, and Jason Crow of Zinc Row said, I don't like that. He said, there's got to be a better way than to put an info button that says, parents, do this with your kids. I'm like, there's got to be a better way. You're right. I don't know what it is yet. But how can every app encourage collaboration? So let's talk about some that I think do it well. Let's take a look at DuckDuckMoose, Draw and Tell. Certainly you can do this with your children, but there's a mic right up there at the top where you can record, and even if that dialogue isn't happening right here person to person, you're recording it. You're using the literacy to tell those stories. Similar with Doodlecast for kids. I love Doodlecast too, because you can get a picture of a mouth and you hear the app say, whose mouth is this? And then you draw the mouth. That's me. I'm an artist. And what's nice about this, and notice how they give the time and a nice bar chart. Oh, I love it. What's nice about these apps is then when I'm drawing with my kids at the restaurant and I draw a piece of paper, I can draw a mouth. And I can say, whose mouth is this? Now with these, you can also record them and play them back later. And of course, Toca Boca. We're at the Tea Party app on Toca Boca. There's literally 3 spots at the table. You're supposed to get 2 other people to have a tea party with you and sit and have a tea party. It's a beautiful way of how to integrate co-play into that. Now at this point, Warren told me I was supposed to have some jokes about educational psychologists, which actually I'm not an ed psychologist person, I'm an ed technology person, so this is the only joke I have. I was working on it since dinner. B.F. Skinner walks into a bar. I know it's hack, but okay. B.F. Skinner walks into a bar and he says, that's funny, last time I did that they gave me a cookie. Okay, so moving on. If you would like, these are the jokes, people. We'll learn about B.F. Skinner tomorrow morning. Okay, there's more information. The Joan Gans Cooney Center had a whole report on co-viewing. Where's Carly at? Okay, so Carly's over here. She's a great person to talk about co-viewing, how you get co-media. Co-viewing is that idea that the kid's watching Sesame Street, and so they put a cameo of, I don't know, Captain America on, and like the parents are watching that. I'm just saying, I'm making a request should that happen. And so the parents start watching because it's Captain America, and then the parents and the kids watch it together, and the kids who watch it with their parents actually do a better job of absorbing the information. So they're trying to figure out how to do that with iPads and apps and encourage co-viewing. Okay, so this morning in the car, as we were getting ready to leave, we were driving, and I told my 4-year-old Carter, I said, okay, now Carter and Alex, Mommy's going to go. She's not going to be here for bedtime tonight. So that means Daddy is going to have to be Mommy and Daddy. And my job at bedtime is to sing lullabies and to cuddle up with one of them. So I said, so Daddy will give you Mommy's kisses and hugs, and then he'll put on a blonde wig and a nightgown, and he can be Mommy, which the boys thought was hilarious. So then Daddy, playing along, said, and I can sing you the lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow. And Carter says, stop singing like Mommy. right here, Carter. I am right here. Somehow, my perception of what that experience is like at bedtime is a little bit different than what Carter thinks bedtime is like. I could sing like that, but I don't know. But the third great challenge, I don't even have to tell you directly, because Maria Montessori says it best, when she says that education is a natural process and is acquired not by listening to words, but by experiences in the environment. I realize the irony in reading this quote to you. So the question is, for Grand Challenge 3, how can we foster exploration? How can we create an environment in which kids learn their experiences? One of my favorites, Scribblenauts. Scribblenauts, you're given a challenge. There are all sorts of different challenges. In this case, the man needs a haircut. Give the stylist the tool she needs. And then you can type in whatever the heck you want. Razor, dinosaur, barbershop pole, whatever it is. So customer got a razor, and then the next customer came in and got a curling iron. Next customer wanted to be dyed blonde, so I typed in Marilyn Monroe wig. That worked. Some of the challenges might be like, how do you make the dinosaurs extinct? How do you topple a building without an earthquake? And my son can type in whatever he wants. This has been amazing discussion as we're in the car, as we're doing other things, how you create an experience, a sandbox where the kids can just play an open-ended play. So I'm going to tell you what my friend Jennifer Wells told me once, when I asked her about good apps for kids at risk. And she said, well, the best technology engages the user in something he doesn't normally have access to. Doesn't matter if they're at risk or not. That's our goal, is to expose them to things they don't have access to. So let me tell you my story about that. Would you switch me over to the iPad, please? Okay, so this is Star Walk. If you've had an iPad ever in your life, you probably know Star Walk. Anybody here seen Star Walk? Okay, so it's a star map. This was the first app that I had when we went to the house, and friends would come over and be like, ooh, you got an iPad, that's fancy. This is the app I'd show them. So the idea with Star Walk is, and I'm kind of limited by my cables here, is it's just a star map, so you can hold it to the horizon and you can see different things. So if you've ever been out in the backyard and you've been like, there's a bright star, what is it? You hold this up and it tells you what it is, if it's a star or a planet. And you can see constellations. It's amazing because it gives you that information you want when you're out there and you want it. So as I'm doing this with our friends at our house all the time, I noticed this dotted line there. Can you see that dotted line? And everybody would be like, what's the dotted line? I'd be like, I don't know. And so I'd look at all, and I noticed that Neptune and Pluto, Saturn, I noticed the planets were kind of grouped along the dotted line. Mars, I'm like, okay, why are all the planets in a line? Is that, I mean, I kind of always thought, and I said I was a space fan. It doesn't mean I was well educated. I'm just a space fan. So I always thought it was like sun and planets kind of going around. So if that's the case, why are the planets in a line? And so I'd like Google things like planets in alignment, and I'd get crazy things about like the Kardashians and Mayan calendars. And so I just I didn't know what the point of that was. So then came the solar system app, which Theo Gray showed us today. Now the solar system app, he showed you a lot of my favorite parts about it, but that orrery was amazing. So that orrery just shows you how the planets go around the sun, okay? So, and you can speed it up. Whoa, let's see if we can kind of speed them up. Whoa, can you see that okay up there? Yeah. Whoa, okay. So you can do simple things like showing, you know, as you look at the Earth, night, day, night, day, night, day. You know, it shows that really nicely. But the other thing you'll notice is, look here. What do you notice about our planets? They're in a line. It's not like sun, planets. It's a dinner plate. They actually are all in a line, which I'm sure I learned at some point in my life, probably, possibly, I don't know. But now I understood exactly what that dotted line was. And I learned it not because someone told me, not because they taught me, but because I asked questions about my environment, and the app facilitated that. And not only that, look here. See this kind of weird one out there? See, it's kind of like one of these things. It's not like the other. Okay. Okay, what do you think that is? Let's go see. Pluto. Okay, remember when Pluto got kicked out of the Planets Club? If I'd had this, I would have been like, duh, hello. I could have told him that, right? When you see it that way, it suddenly makes sense. Of course Pluto's not a planet. Look at it, it's all crazy, wacky, and weird. Let me show you one of my other favorites. This is Smule Magic Piano. The folks from Smule were here last year, and I was like so excited to meet them because this is one of my favorite apps. So Smule, Okay, so Smule is I downloaded it was simpler at the time. So how many people have seen Smule Magic Piano? Okay, so a lot of people played with this. If you haven't done this before, so the idea is, let's go, okay, so the idea is, okay, 2 fingers, Okay, you can do it as fast or as slow as you want. So 4 fingers. Yeah, baby. Okay. Okay, yeah, okay. So now, so that was, yeah, thanks. Okay, so we're going to go to the lullaby that I play for my son, which he calls Burrito Maria. It's actually Ave Maria. Okay, so, oh, you know what? I'm going to go make this a little easier because I can only do so many things at a time while I'm talking to you. So we're going to go easy. It's nice to have that flexibility. Okay, so here we go. Okay, I can go faster, right? Okay. Okay, so Moonlight Sonata, when I played piano, was the first song I learned how to play from memory. I learned like 4 bars. And Moonlight Sonata is on here. I would play it. And I would play it. And I would play it. And I thought, this is a ridiculously stupid app. I don't know what it's good for. It doesn't teach you how to play piano. It doesn't teach you rests or measures or time or notes. I'm doing too far to the left. But I couldn't stop playing this app. And I would play Moonlight Sonata over and over and over again because there was this one part I couldn't get. And I would play it over and over, and I couldn't get it. And there was nothing in the app that taught me how to get it. So I went to YouTube on my iPad, and I found a professional pianist playing Moonlight Sonata, and I sat on my bed and I listened. But I didn't just listen, of course. I was on my bed, and I got to the part that was really hard. And I found myself listening. The kind of listening you have to do with your hands in the air and your eyes closed. And I listened to it again. And again. And then I went back and I played it again. And I realized what this app is for. It doesn't teach you how to play music. It teaches you how to listen to music. It teaches you how to appreciate music. It teaches you how to create something beautiful. Not with 9 years of piano lessons, but it makes you practice. It makes you earn it. And it makes you listen for when other people play music. And when you can play something beautiful, you appreciate the things of beauty around you. Cross hand. Okay. Thank you. Go back to the computer if we can. If you'd put that back over to the computer for me. So those are some examples of apps that gave me experiences that I don't know that they designed for. So the question is, how do you design for experiences like this? How do you create things that let learners explore until they learn? That's kind of the important question. How do we create learning experiences? And I'll tell you, it's hard. It is incredibly hard and time-consuming, and it takes the right team. One of the questions we use at work is we ask this question: what do we want the learner to be able to do? Now, there's 2 approaches here. You can have them do it and reward them, okay? That's the B.F. Skinner approach. That's behaviorism. He'd be all over that. That's get the rat to press a bar and they get a cookie. And then you give them to press a bar and you give them a cookie. And you give them and this works with humans too. Absolutely, there is a place for this. That is called gamification. There are things that we learned that this is ideal for, and it works great. It's the idea behind flashcards. It's behind quiz-based learning. The other approach is to create an environment where they decide how to do it themselves. And that is called inquiry-based learning, exploration. That is the hard thing. Now, I'm not going to say that the gamification and the other things are bad. They're not. They're great. There is a place for them. But we don't need to spend time with that these 3 days because that's easy, and there's enough of it out there that when you want to do that, you will find good examples of how to do it well. So what we need to talk about and what we need to work, what the grand challenge is to create an environment where they decide how to do it themselves. Here's some examples of things I think do it well. Windowsill. Windowsill is just this beautiful, creative thing where you just, those are the instructions right there. And you got to tap and scrub and rub and figure out what you're supposed to do. It's incredibly engaging, a little annoying to start, and then incredibly engaging, as most learning is, not unlike dating. Here's an example of a game we're doing, Game Over Gopher, that I think is a good example of both applied, some kind of applied learning, as well as conceptual. So it's to teach coordinate planes on a graph. So the idea is you track the path the gopher's trying to eat your carrot, so you have to put the coordinate pairs on there, and then it's just a tower defense game. You have ruby mines, and you're trying to feed them with carrot shooters and beet juice, and you do all of that, and you're just kind of practicing putting those pairs, and it's scaffolded so that you learn it gradually. You have your positives and then your negatives, and you learn those things. But there's also this wonderful level that's a little more exploratory, where you have to find and use your robot gopher to find where the treasure is. So you just type in a random coordinate, and this was Darren's idea. He was on a quality assurance committee with us. You just type it in, and then it points an arrow to it. And then you type in a coordinate. And so then you suddenly have 4 things pointing to it, and then you can discern where the point is. Now, an interesting story about this, we have our little robot gopher guy right there, and we wanted the arrow to kind of draw attention. So what it would do is you'd like put a point in, and the little arrow would be like, whoop, and it would, point to it. But of course, the arrow was in the center of the gopher. You see the problem. Yes. So we moved it down, and this resulted in a tweet from me saying, it's surprising what a large percentage of my time as a game designer saying, it looks great, now make it look less like a, Okay, so how do we foster exploration? Well, I think you need to think about how you encourage playing around. Not with instructions. How do you let people and encourage play? And please, no more flashcards, no more quiz games. And please use the iPad to do something you can't do with a paper and pencil. If you use those last 3 things to censor yourself, you are on a step to exploration. Now, I told you I'm a space fan, so I have to tell you my last space story. I was in grad school. It was a conference in Florida, and I found out there was a space shuttle launch. And I was like, that's it, we're doing it. So I got a rental car, and I left like 2 hours early, and I found some other grad students who wanted to go see the space shuttle launch, and we got there, and we got the map, and we took off, and we were driving for like 45 minutes, and we realized we were totally going in the wrong direction. So we found the next exit and the next armor, and we went back, and I'm just driving like crazy fast as soon as I can to get to the space shuttle launch. And we're about 10 minutes off from the launch, and it's clear we are not near the launch area. And so I was like, what do we do? And they're like, just keep driving. So I just kept driving and driving. And then there was this magical moment about 2 minutes before launch where all the traffic on both sides just parted. Just all at once. It parted and went onto the sides of the road. And everybody parked, and they rolled their windows down on their car, and they got out and stood on the hood or in the beds of their truck, and they had the radios on. And we were all out there together, and the only thing you could hear was the countdown. Because you could hear control coming in on the radios. And we're all on both sides of the road, and we could hear, and they're preparing for launch in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We blast off. And it was completely silent. And we watched the shuttle lift off, and this streak of light go up into the sky. And all we could hear on the radio was readiness and fuel and speed. And then all at once, everybody on the side of the road just burst into applause. And we were applauding, and we were hugging each other, and we were cheering, and we were patting each other on the back like we had anything to do with that. I mean, we were just the morons who couldn't even get to the launch pad on time, but we're, woo, look at us, And I think what was amazing, Jack Schmidt was an astronaut. He said what really resonated with him about the Apollo program is it said what we could do as human beings when we worked together. And when I think about that time when we were all on the side of the road, united by this simple act, we were strangers united simply because we were on the same road looking at the same direction, and we believed that was something worth doing. Each of us on the side of the road were united that sending that shuttle into space was worth doing and worth celebrating and worth applauding. And that moment is one in my life that is driving me to think about what I want to do. And it's no different for the kids that we are working for. So the next few days, join me and think about how we can get math literacy in every app, how we can encourage discussion, talk with others at dinner, how we do this and get them talking to each other, and how we can design intentionally to foster exploration. Because these challenges are the ones that we are going to accept, not because they're easy, but because they're hard. I hope that you all have as a great time this weekend as I think that I will. Thank you.